believe it or not, my first business, my accountant told me I couldn't make money with the franchise. So you know what happened? I made money with the franchise and I fired the accountant.
You just need to trust your instinct, and the secret ingredient in a business is you.
When you start a business,
Right.
your revenue is the lowest, you work the most. It's the worst time. But as you grow the business, the revenue goes up. And then your time goes down.
Right.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
Welcome to an episode of the Freedom Franchise Podcast, as well as the I Fire My Boss podcast. Dan Claps here with some of my franchise friends, Natalie Gold and Giuseppe Grammatico. And what's going on, guys?
Not looking forward to that. I merging the shows, which is kind of cool. So meeting of the minds.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we've also got a special guest over there, Mia. Hello, Mia.
Not feeling well, so it's take me to work day.
That's awesome. Well, you get the freedom as a businessman to do that, right?
Yeah, no one's gonna fire me, so that's a plus.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to
That's
fire your
true.
boss to then become the boss. Well, today we're going to be talking about, utilizing advisors or, not utilizing advisors and kind of the difference when thinking about starting a business. I think I'll kick this off. Obviously, you need to talk to trusted people about anything that you're thinking about doing when it comes to getting into a business. My advice, though, is to talk to people that are in that industry. So if you're thinking about getting into the technology industry, talk to a technology advisor. Thinking about getting into franchising, talk to a franchise advisor, not your neighbor. Not your, friend that tells you that, they don't think franchising makes sense because they, heard on TV that, X, Y, Z happened. And I would tell you that where I like to think about this is I'm on my maybe fourth business of starting, and I've never had a family member, not one time, it's a good idea. Not one time. Anyone of all my business ever said, you should go for that. It's a good time. Never been the case. And I'll leave with, or I'll kind of end with, I was thinking about this, Sarah Blakely. She started Spanx. And she actually said that when she had the idea, she didn't tell anyone for a year. She built the idea because she knew that people, she told them they would start to bring her down. So she had to work on her own, get that momentum, get that confidence. What do you guys think about that?
You actually did that to me. I had a business idea a long time ago. When we first started our consulting business, I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I was like, we just need to make a site where we sell FDDs and has like every single FDD on it. And then after we sold the business, I did it and it worked.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't listen to Dan.
Don't listen to me. He applies to me.
It
too.
applies.
I was like, why didn't I do that earlier? But it definitely was a massive undertaking at the time. But I think what we were talking about with Giuseppe was with the Shark Tank. And you were telling us about something, and that's how we went into how even the sharks are wrong.
Yeah, listen, you never know exactly what's going to work out. And I think just to add to kind of what you guys were saying, sometimes it's people don't mean anything negative by it. It's more of they're being cautious, right? They don't want you to lose money or there's a big risk. Believe it or not, my first business, my accountant told me I couldn't make money with the franchise. So you know what happened? I made money with the franchise and I fired the accountant. So hopefully he's not listening. We're not going to name names, but so, they look at the numbers. They don't look at necessarily the big picture of the actual business itself. So yeah, I completely get it. But when you do ask for advice, you do have to be very cautious of who you're asking for.
And where are their motivations coming from?
Sure.
I know that in my 11 years of being in franchising, I've never heard a financial planner, no offense to financial planners, but a lot of times I've seen people, they get close to buying a business. They go to their financial planner to get their financial planner's opinion. Again, I like to think most people operate with integrity. I'm sure they do. But keep in mind, the money that you have in your retirement account or in your investment accounts, if you're talking to a financial planner about taking them out, they make a percentage fee on the money that's in there.
Right.
The more that is in there, the more that they can manage and the more that they can make you, but also the more that they can make themselves. And so a lot of times they're not going to be motivated either to say, yeah, I think it's a great idea to take out half the revenue stream of my business out of the account so you can go do another business.
Meanwhile, they own their own business anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And offense to financial planners, I am offended.
It's and that's part of it, right? It's percentage of assets under management, and it's hard to control a startup versus you're buying mutual funds. There's data. There's a lot more history. So yeah, I've experienced that as well. So what about Shark Tank? What are some Do we have some examples of
No,
some deals
yeah.
that?
Well, I mean, but imagine if you were like, well, let me call Mark Cuban, and you had his ear and you told him about an idea. They were wrong on the Ring doorbell, which is massive. They were wrong about so many other things. And then they invested a lot of money in things that didn't work, like that sweet balls. Like, what was that about? So I think even if you have people that could be experts, they could be wrong. You just need to trust your instinct. And the secret ingredient in a business is you.
I mean, I think back, if we had went around and tried to find reasons not to start, Vote or make the acquisition and then franchise, I wouldn't have done it. There would be a million things that people would tell you. You just kind of have to talk to customers, obviously, to make, or potential customers, and listen to them and see kind of their feedback. But anyone else, it doesn't matter. And, I'll give you another example. I've had so many times where people are close to buying a franchise, for example, and then they go, oh, well, like my neighbor has, advised me I shouldn't do it. I was like, what does your neighbor do? Oh, they're an accountant, or they're, whatever, a lawyer, or they're, they work in tech. It's like, why does your neighbor have any precedence on this decision? Well, they don't know anything about it. But people, a lot of times we just trust people that we know, even if they have no knowledge of space.
You just triggered a core memory. I was talking to this guy, and I'll never forget. He worked his whole life, and his wife stayed at home, and he was like, it's finally my chance. I'm going to start a business. I really want to do something on my own. And his wife had this control over him where she was like, no. And I felt really bad because, like, number one, I was like, oh, what does she do for a living? Oh, she's never worked. I'm like, okay. But maybe she's like a business background professionally. Is she like in finance, or is she examining the numbers? No, none of that. I was like, wow, like I'm thinking in my mind, like, she doesn't believe in you. Like, that is so sad that you have someone that you've supported your whole life and like they still don't have faith in your abilities.
It's interesting that you say that. I was actually just having that conversation with someone. What I've learned, and this is not really related to like talking to an advisor, not about buying a business, but just in general, when it comes to teammates and partnerships, something I've learned is that more times than not, in my experience in business, when I find that someone is acting differently, a lot of times you don't realize how much of that is driven by the spouse or the family members, whether it's a, company owned by, a father-son, and all of a sudden it's not the father-son relationship that can change. It's the son's spouse or the daughter's spouse that, starts to see the opportunity or starts to understand things a little bit differently and starts to get into their ear. And so I've learned something. It's so interesting. Like same with business partnerships. You better make sure that you have a pretty good relationship with the spouse of your business partner. Because if you don't have the trust there too, that can go really quickly the other way. Because of course they're going to side with their spouse as they should. But if they don't have all the information or lifestyle changes, it's very important to be careful of that.
So would you say, I think it's important for everyone to be at the table. So if you are buying a franchise, whatever the business is, that partnership, everyone should be on the table. Everyone should know exactly what's involved, because as a consultant, if we're talking about a franchise, maybe they're not, relaying that message back to the spouse. So I always, mention, hey, we'd like everyone to be on these calls together. So if there's a concern or a question, we all kind of are on the same page. Not easy, and I don't know if you would agree, but to get everyone on the phone, but it just makes it so much simpler. And that way everyone knows the plan. And the expectation is we're going to grow this. This is where we want to be. Maybe the plan is to sell it in 10 years. So I think that's crucial. I think everyone involved in the decision, and even the families, why is mom or dad buying this franchise? It's so we can spend more time with Mia and everybody else. So, that's the reason for doing it.
I think I put the fear of God into people, because when we have that conversation, I'm like, take it from someone that's been divorced. You either do something to your spouse or you do it with them.
Right.
So I would definitely recommend having your spouse on the calls, and they're on the calls.
100%. And they don't have to be in every call. Like my wife was on the first call and she was like, great. She's like, you're going to run your business. I'll support you every way I can, but I'm going to keep my job. And she's been at the same employer for 25 years and she's happy there. But she said, I understand the risk. She was on the first call. And then after that, she said, I don't have to be on the calls. Just let me know kind of what's going on. And that was our agreement, and it worked out fine.
When we talk about being married, and you think about it, like making a decision of anything. Do you really make that many big decisions with your spouse? Of course not. So like, why
Yeah.
would it be the difference with a franchise? I actually think when people are looking at a franchise and they know their spouse usually is involved in decisions and they don't include them, it's kind of a way to kind of subconsciously give themselves a way out, right? It's like, oh, well, my spouse isn't on board. Well, you didn't bring them into the whole process.
Right.
Of course, I'm
Right.
not on board. I wouldn't be either, which is interesting. I think it's challenging though, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that they think, let me get the information first and then bring my spouse. The other thing I've noticed is, I think in the case of someone when they're the breadwinner their entire life, whoever in the relationship is the breadwinner their entire life, I think that's a little bit of a different situation where it's like, look, like you trusted me to provide for all this time. You're gonna have to, like you said, you have to bet on me here too. And this is the move I have to make.
But maybe they just don't want to do it because honestly, like they might not be that into it if they're not really sharing it with their spouse. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they're like not all in yet. Like, I'm definitely doing this. They're more testing the waters before they bring them into the conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to understand is like, if you want to, get in shape or lose weight, you have to go through pain to get there, right? If you want to make a business, successful, you have to go through sacrifice. And so you're going to have to, like you said, get your spouse involved because they have to be on board with the sacrifice that
They're going to be
you're gonna have to make.
sacrificing too.
Yeah.
It may be no income the first year. It may be no vacations that first year, or there's going to be a shift in lifestyle. So absolutely, they have to know they have to set. This is the expectation, but the goal is to, go on more vacations, retire early, spend more time with the family. So I think if you set the expectation, they're on board then. But ultimately, everyone has to be on board, or it's going to be a rocky road.
I got a question. What's this trend or thing that I feel like I've been seeing, which is people that are looking at buying a franchise business with an expectation of like, they have to make this, crazy profit their first year, which by the way, to me, crazy profit is anything that's like, a good amount of money. Like, you're trying to replace your salary or something in the first year. I've never really seen businesses usually do that. So, but what are you guys seeing where people come with those expectations? Has something changed in the, kind of economy or the generation? Like, what is that kind of driving?
I think people expect the immediate return, right? They want to go viral in the first post on social media. So I think that's where it's coming from. I always tell people that first year it's a learning curve. You've never owned a business. You've never hired people. So this is all new. You're learning something new, but to be matching the income you were making immediately, you're building something. So to have that expectation, I always take a step back and say, realistically, any profit. So even if there is that kind of profit, you want to reinvest in the right team, in the right systems, because this is not a business that you hope to grow 10% a year. This is something that's going to be growing exponentially. That's something I've experienced in my business. And I always, my first year, reinvested everything back. I didn't take a dime out, but I also set reserves aside for that. So I think it's this instant gratification. I have to make money right away. And it's okay if you don't match your salary the first year. You should really be investing in those systems, or else you're starving the business. You're pulling too much out. You're not hiring the right people, or not, paying them what they're owed, and you're not investing in the technology as well.
Yeah, but people say that, but they're still taking a salary, and they're saying the business isn't profitable, and
they're pulling their salary and
they're
their
pulling their salary. So I mean, I think it just depends. Some people can hit the ground running, and some people don't. There's hurdles that you can't predict. No one has a crystal ball.
Right.
Like COVID happened, people that own certain businesses were affected, and other people. Like, you were selling masks, you killed it, or gloves, or whatever, right?
Right.
So it just depends. I think you can make money year one. We've done it before, and it's doable, but
it's more of what you do with that money. So even if you make the money, you don't have to pull it out.
Right.
You can, reinvest. I think you should be reinvesting as much as you can to build that base so that, the money's not made the first few years. The money's made later, and in many cases, money's made on the exit.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, yeah, right. People forget about the enterprise value that they built in a business. I was talking to a business owner that, had started building a business. Their first year did well, but didn't make money. They lost money.
Right.
But they were building the bones of the business. And in their regular job, they made a substantial amount of money. And what you have to remember is, like, I can't give tax advice, but when you lose money in a business, but you have another income, well, that loss is a net operating NOI, net operating loss.
Right.
And net operating loss. And it carries over into your taxes. And so if you're making a bunch of money in one place, well, now you're losing money, if you will, as far as your other business, but you're building a business, you're building an asset. You're mitigating tax exposure. And then the next year, when you do build the business further, and let's say you do start to make a profit, which by the way, most business owners, they want to try to have a big profit. But when they do start to have a profit, you're going to be able to get a multiple on that profit, whatever multiple down the road. And so you have to think of it as like enterprise value of what you're building. But I think that the number one mistake business owners make is they start to succeed and then they go buy the boat or they go get the new car. And it's like, no, you should, like you said, reinvest the money into your business for a while.
Do you ever realize that the people that want to make, like, they're like, I need to make this much money first year, they're in a worker mindset.
Yeah.
They don't have a business mindset. So I was having a conversation with someone. It just clicked to me when you said that I was like, oh, have you worked with a franchise consultant in the past? And he was like, yes. I was like, okay, great. Tell me a little bit about what you looked at. And he was really attached to what the business was as opposed to what it can do for him. And he was thinking like, oh, I'm going to do this every day, or like basically trying to buy himself a job. Like one of those businesses where it's literally like, you might as well clock in at this point, right? And I was like, well, I'll tell you one thing. I was like, I'm not necessarily obsessed with this, but I have a business and I'm able to travel and I have a lot of flexibility. I was like, why do you care so much what it is when you're going to have it running to the point where you don't even need to be there?
Right.
And he was like, oh, it's a mindset shift. And then other things people say that I'm like, that's a red flag. And it's okay. Some people are meant to work for others for life, but they're like, oh, if the business works,
Right.
like
That's
if
a
I'm
poor
going to get
choice.
into business, I honestly could do a poop scooping business. I will make it work. That's not an option. If the business works, then I can finally leave my job. Sorry, you're a loser. I just feel like that. Like if you either are a winner and like you're going to go out and get it, or you're not. And if you're not ready, that's cool. I still need to hire people, and you can, there's a place for everyone, but it has to be like, and you just have to be able to run through walls to make things happen. And if you can't, then I know that they're not going to be the right fit for a franchise.
Agreed. You're going in with the wrong mindset. And kind of piggyback what you were saying, when people buy a franchise, it seems as if they expect it to say, okay, whether I'm going to run it full-time or part-time, I'm going to make that investment and the business is just going to run on its own.
Yeah.
And I go, no, this is just, as a franchisor, this is a model. We're creating this system for you to follow, for you to execute. It's not for you to set it and forget it. I always say you make the investment and then it's, what is that? The Ron Popeil sausage machine I remember from years ago. Set it and forget it, and the franchisor is running the system. If that's the case, you don't need the franchisee if you're doing all the work. So that's the whole point of the system. There is success, there are going to be failures, but where I see people failing is they're undercapitalized and they don't follow the system. They don't use the marketing. They don't use the lead gen. They don't follow the systems in place. So that's what I've seen.
I also think it depends, so the mindset around like the business making it happen. So we were having this conversation earlier, but I can understand the mindset of like, I bought this new franchise in a new industry and it's not working. And I believe the model doesn't work. So for example, if a franchise brand created a new space or a new service or a new way of, building a haircut place or something, and then it's like, no, this model's not working.
Right.
I can understand that mindset, but I know, and for me, and being in the cleaning restoration space, I'll go to RIA in a couple of weeks, which is the Restoration Industry Conference, and there'll be people doing tremendous numbers that don't even have a college degree or even let alone a GID. And so restoration works, like the model works. And, you can do Avoda or Puro Clean or Paul Davis. And at the end of the day, like there's only so much is being done there. We're not recreating the wheel. When you buy into a franchise, you're buying into the culture, the training, the brand, the systems, but it's not a like make or break. And so whether someone drives a Voda, think of Voda as a Mercedes, right? Or they drive a Puro Clean as a BMW, or they drive Resto Pros as a, what's another nice car? Lexus, right? Whether they drive one of those cars and get to the destination is not going to be because of Mercedes, BMW, or Lexus. It's going to be because of the driver. If they crash, it's not because it was a BMW or Mercedes. It was the driver driving the car. And so I always say that when people are looking at Voda, like, for example, comparative to other home service brands, or especially when they're looking at restoration, like you're going to succeed or not based on Voda. Like it's going to be you. It's just going to be how fast and how far you go is going to be which brand you choose as far as the restoration companies, or like how much easier it is. And I tell that to people all the time. I remember one time someone said to me to try to persuade me to do something. They said, "You're not going to ever be able to get to XYZ point without this."
Right.
And that was the wrong answer. The right answer was, you're going to be able to get to this place. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder. It's going to take you a hell of a lot longer, right? And so I say that to people looking at Voda. I don't think like you're going to buy a franchise, and if you didn't buy a franchise, you just won't succeed. It's just going to be a lot harder. It's going to take a lot longer. Yes, the stats are a lot lower too, but I think when people get into the business and then it doesn't succeed and they blame the franchise, it's kind of deferral of accountability. But last thing I'll say as a franchisor, we have to look in the mirror too.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime I have a franchisor not succeeding, it's like, what is wrong on our end? Or like, what was wrong in expectations? Like, what could have been improved? We can't just blame it. That's the problem with franchising. The franchise owner blames the franchisor, and the franchisor blames them, and then no one's taking accountability.
And it's a team effort. This is it's a marriage. It's usually a 10-year agreement. I would say 5 to 20 years. Usually the average is about 10 years. If I'm wrong, correct me, but that's what I've heard. So 10 years. So, okay, if you're struggling in certain area, it may just be one thing. It just may, your salesperson needs retraining. Maybe it's the quality of leads. Maybe it's a combination, but working with the franchisor, that's, it's a partnership. It's a long-term relationship. Figure out what's working, what's not working, what can we do better? And I think that's a part of it. Not working. Like I've talked to people before that are struggling and they've never had a conversation with the franchisor. And I go, what the hell are you waiting for? What do you mean? Like, you're getting support from them. There's trainings and all that. But if you're struggling, that's the first call you should make is to that coach, the accountability person, whatever they're called at each of the companies. But to me, that sounds like common sense, but sometimes people need to be reminded.
Why is that though? I know what you mean. It's like you're struggling, but you don't reach out, or you don't want to get on the coaching calls. It's like the support's there. You got to tap into it. I think it's unrealistic, like to expect the franchisor is just going to like fly in an airplane every time and come see you. Like,
sure.
Why not get on the phone with them, or why not fly in an airplane to them and meet with them and say, like, can I take a day with you? Can I come out to your flagship location? I don't hear that anywhere near as much as you would think. Like, hey, I'm struggling. Can I come shadow?
Right.
And then the other thing I see, and again, this is just all franchises, is the people that are struggling end up, congregating with the other people that are struggling instead of saying, who's top in the system? Who can I reach out to? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to
feather flock together type of thing.
What is it called?
Like birds of a feather flock together, like the
misery loves company. Yeah.
Yeah.
And top producers are too busy really to jump in and say anything. So all of a sudden, the loudest in the room are the people that are struggling. And so it's like, how do you get more engagement that way?
That's a good question. Why they're not reaching out is something I've just have not been able to figure out. Are they upset? Are they bitter? Do they, I don't know what it is. I don't know why they wouldn't reach out, but you would think that would be common sense. But maybe it's you really can't make certain. You can only do so many things that are mandatory, right? They're their own business owner. They have to run their own business, but it's almost like submit your profit loss. Maybe that's the thing. Something is off in the P&L. Where we can work on it together. But I've never heard of a franchisor saying, no, we're too busy or we won't help you. They're more than welcome.
I have heard that.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Too busy to support?
The complainers, like they basically blacklist them.
Oh,
the people that complain in the system, it happens that they do that.
I mean, that's definitely unacceptable, right? Because at the end of the day, like they have an agreement to support the franchisee and they should be doing that. I think about playing devil's advocate, and I was the franchise owner that's struggling.
Right.
We're saying, why would they not reach out? I think if you keep reaching out and the franchisor is not listening to you, would you keep reaching out?
Right.
If you know that there's, so I think it's this middle ground. Like I'll give you an example with Voda. We do a really great job listening to our franchise owners, to the point that we actually crossed over a line that was not okay, which was, hey, we listened to you and your feedback for 45 minutes, but the second I try to give you any feedback, everything's perfect. Right. And I actually just had this conversation with a franchise owner recently, which was, if you're struggling and doing everything perfectly, which is chance of that is literally zero, then we're in a lot of trouble, right? Because if there's nothing to fix, then I don't know what to do. But if you want to come to the call with solutions, and we're happy to hear where we can improve too. But if you're going to come in the call where you're completely perfect
Right.
and there's nothing to solve in your business and we're only the ones that are wrong, that's not a
Right.
productive, kind of mindset. And again, if you're not succeeding and you're doing everything right, that's a big problem. Chances of that is zero. No one's doing their business
Right.
right. You know what I mean?
Your ego is not your amigo.
Yeah, like if you've never been in
There you
business
go.
and you're in your first year of business, like it's not fair to expect you're going to be the best business owner ever, and that's okay. But yeah, the ego gets in the way. Same for franchisors, their ego gets in the way because they start to think, well, like we've been doing this for so long. We actually have we call it like a commandment, but one of our franchisor commandments is they could be right,
Right.
which is an idea that like that franchise owner could be right. Let's make sure we're actually listening to them, but then we expect them to also listen.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, for sure. One thing that you said was about we'll never get there without doing it this way. I hear that sometimes where someone is like, oh, I don't need a franchise. I can just make my own burger
Right.
place. I'm like, yeah, you don't need McDonald's. You could do Bob's Burgers, but do you really want to come up with the branding, all the ads? Like, I don't think you realize how much work
work
is
is.
involved. Like, of course you could do it. You're smart. You're capable. You're an executive. Like, if you want to do all that work at this point of your life, go for it. And you could do it.
One other thing I want to add too, is where when I hear people complain, is that the idea of semi-absentee ownership, where they're keeping their job and then they're running the business on the side. And I said there's a couple components there. Obviously, the franchisor has to allow that, but people are hiring managers that they've never owned the business. They're hiring managers, but they're not managing the manager. There's no oversight, so they're assuming the manager is doing what they need to do, but they're not checking in. They're not doing the weekly in-person meetings or calls and stuff like that. And if they are, like I did with my business, and a mistake I made many, many moons ago, 20 years ago, was I bottlenecked the business. So the manager, every big decision had to get approved by me. Well, who the heck was I to approve it when my manager had more experience in years I was alive at the time?
Yeah.
So I became a bottleneck. So the big part is finding a franchisor that will support and allow part-time semi-absentee ownership. But on the flip side, when you bring that person on, maybe they have some underlying equity, some phantom equity, so they have some skin in the game. They're getting a cut of some of the profits, but you're also managing and setting the expectation. This is what I need you to do. These are the decisions I need you to make. These are the hours I'm available, because if you have a job, obviously, and you can't talk in the hours of 9 to 2, 9 to 3, or even 9 to 5, they know when to contact you and what decisions you can make. So
Yeah.
I believe it's both. It's the right person and expectation, and finding the right franchise that would support that type of ownership.
I mean, and just for obviously for your listeners, they know your background, but you owned a cleaning
Right.
company. Like, what can you just give the background real quick, just for my audience?
Yeah, we had, commercial building maintenance, commercial cleaning. I ran the business full time to really scale that business. And then after that first year, brought on that manager. It was an operations manager, general manager. I forget what the actual title was, but I was so tight to the business. I touched every part of the business. I had to finalize every decision. So I had brought a manager. And by the way, my background was on Wall Street, and we owned the restaurants. I had no experience in that industry whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I brought an experienced person to the table, a GM with 20 plus years experience in that business. But yet I had to okay all his decisions to the point where, he wasn't able to do his job. It became kind of a bottleneck. So I was running it semi-absentee, but not allowing the manager to do their job, on a daily basis. So it was an interesting business. I learned a lot. I learned that you can't be the expert in all areas, and that you need to hire people that are better than you in certain areas, at social media, at marketing, at sales. So I learned a lot in that business, and I do a lot of learning. So I try to bring that experience to the table and helping people to find a franchise.
It's interesting. What you did, though, is you got in the business, you learned it, and you grew it. When I think of my definition of semi-absentee, first of all, is it's a hockey stick, right? And so when you start a business,
Right.
your revenue is the lowest, you work the most, it's the worst time. But as you grow the business, the revenue goes up, and then your time goes down.
Right.
But this idea that you're not going to work in the business and the revenue is going to go up, I've never experienced that in a business. And I think that you have to be involved. Like, example, I'm not as involved in the day-to-day of Voda as I was even 6 months ago.
Right.
It took time to get there. And my definition of semi-absentee isn't that now I'm going on the beach drinking Mai Tais and hanging out. If I'm not in the office on a Monday through Friday, then I'm out doing something to generate revenue or recruit people. Now, sometimes that might mean going out to play a round of tennis and Friday afternoon
Networking.
with a property manager, a plumber, a consultant, a potential teammate. That is the job of the business owner. But I always thought of semi-absentee meetings like you're not in the day-to-day, so you can go out there and be what we call the mayor of the town. Not semi-absentee meeting. I just park my money and it just happened.
I think you're missing one variable that really matters in this conversation. And I would say it's experience. For example, my kid that was here, if I have to get her ready to come here and read, I can do that in half an hour. If her dad had to do it, she might be here at like 5 p.m. So I think like right now, yeah, you had to definitely like, they're like kids, like businesses are like babies. You kind of got to be there the first year. But if you had to do another home service brand the next time and you did another thing that was like similar to Voda, you would be semi-absentee pretty quick. So I think with the franchisee comes from a space where like they have a lot of experience to leverage, and this is just like a copy paste thing for them. They're able to step back really quickly and seamlessly and have that manager model. But if this is something that's brand new and you're completely green to it, yeah, it's going to take more time.
That's a great point. It's not.
That is a good point.
It's not like black and white. It depends on your background. I mean, the way I look at it is like, let's say you owned 3 Orange Theories and I owned 3 Orange Theories, and you brought on a great GM that was a GM of another Orange Theory. You gave them a profit share, and not 5% or 2%, but 20% of the business. And you met with them, weekly to hold them accountable and celebrate their wins. You weren't bipolar with your emotions.
Right.
You didn't start getting in the way of them. And then sometimes you're in the way, sometimes you're not. Maybe you went to the gym twice a week with them and worked out, so you had an actual relationship. And then I, didn't do that, didn't give them a profit interest, didn't hold them accountable, didn't be a cheerleader, didn't have a scorecard, was moody with them. Sometimes I'm the boss, sometimes I'm not. Who do you think would end up working more hours? Me, right? Because I was a bad manager.
Right.
Is that Orange Theory or is that the manager? So to your point, it's the skill, the background. So I think that's the challenge is like, I think people sometimes overestimate though, because they think to themselves, well, I managed people my whole life. Well, you managed a college educated worker, not a blue collar. Nothing wrong with blue collar.
Right.
It's just in my case, we're not in home service, it's a different person.
There is something really to be said about, I think it's a lot easier when you're managing a team that you built. You like all those people, you hired them. And if you don't like them, you could just let them go. Where if you're working for someone else, you have to manage those people, whether they're qualified or not. Like they got thrown onto your team and then you're struggling. So I think I do love the freedom aspect of that. But yeah, you're right. Just have to throw that in there.
Well, that's a good point though. But here's the other thing, like most franchise owners and operators in general, that's the biggest challenge they have is like they have someone on their team. First of all, they want to check the box. I hear it all the time.
Right.
I got to get a GM for training, so I just need to check the box. It's not a box to check. The most important thing is hiring the right person. But then when they're not the right person, they give them way too many chances before they let them go. Like let me rephrase. After years of being beat up, I refuse to keep a teammate for 2 reasons. One, it happens all the time. Oh no, they're going to sabotage my business somehow. If I'm thinking that's the only reason I'm keeping them, they're going. Right. And I'll deal with the sabotage if God forbid happens, which usually does. Or what will I do without them? If I ever feel this mindset, obviously I have people that I feel like, what would I do without them? I would hate to lose them. That's a different story. But more like I don't like working with this person, but I also don't. What would I do without them? They have to go. Right. It's like, and that's the number one time people are afraid to do it. What I found, it's a little crazy, but when you have someone doing a job that you feel like, what am I going to do without them? You actually let them go because the pain of letting them go will actually cause you to solve it and the doors will open. Whereas if you just hold on to them, you're going to prolong the inevitable.
I like that. You got to talk to other business owners. Sometimes you get caught in yourself and your thoughts. So I agree with that. I've had similar experiences. So I'll leave it at that. But yes, I completely agree.
Craziest part is you think you're being compassionate. Right. And actually good leadership is that person that's in the wrong seat, usually, they know it.
I'm just not passionate.
Yeah, they're bringing those problems home. Their spouse is feeling it. Right. Their kids are feeling it. Nobody wakes up every day saying, "I hope I could screw up work today. I hope I can make my boss unhappy." And when they're in the wrong seat, that's what keeps happening. So you're doing them a service, getting them out respectfully, so they can go into what's something a better seat.
Yeah, I agree with
Usually.
that.
And
No,
before you
for
get
sure.
to that, have a conversation out of the office, right? Not beating them up like, why did you do this? But have a, we had issues with managers over the years, and you have a conversation. You go out for a round of golf, or I'm not a golfer, but you do your thing, tennis or whatever sport it is, and you have a conversation. Then the conversation gets going. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the business. It's personal stuff. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe something, they got some bad news, maybe a family member being sick or something like that. And just something like that. And all they needed was a little bit of time off. And that's all they needed, but they felt bad asking. So, you treat, it's a family. I mean, I look at every business as a family, and you treat everyone. Everyone has their, good days and bad days. But I think you take them out of the environment, you have a conversation with them. And I think that alone will go a long way. And sometimes together you decide, maybe we need to part ways, or I just need to get my stuff in order because of all the personal stuff I have on my plate. So I think those meetings, and sometimes they turned out great. Sometimes they turned into, we both mutually agree we have to part ways, and that's okay as well.
Yeah.
Saves a lot of headaches down the road.
Have any crazy stories? That's the juicy stuff that I want to hear.
The crazies? I don't think I have any crazy stories. And we're running out of time. No, I'm just kidding.
Crazy stories. Like teammates, employees.
So we're like in the franchise
Mm.
space, like with candidates. I have so many people that are out of their mind for sure. Like I get people that are like, we really just try to make sure that we match people to the right brand. It's really being efficient and effective with the brands that we're presenting them. Like imagine if you were my real estate agent, and I was like, just show me everything of Zillow.
Right.
I want to see the whole Zillow. Like
Yeah.
that's what people do with us. Like we want to see every single brand. No, like you're not gonna. That's not every single brand is not for you.
Sure.
Like like
It'll
could
probably be
go look
sold by the
online.
time you finish your due diligence.
Yeah.
You're looking at 1,000 companies. Everything's going to be sold.
I would say
So you have no budget. You're looking at something like
Yeah.
a $5 million build out is okay for you.
For the right opportunity,
yeah,
for the right
yeah.
opportunity, we have a partner, unlimited funds.
Oh, and that's the worst. Like business partners, that's the most expensive way to borrow money. I always tell people, like, you pay a franchise a royalty, but your partner, you're paying like a huge chunk, and then when you sell it, you're paying. They get 50%.
I think business partner only makes sense in 3 situations. One, you truly need money, you don't
Right.
have access to your own or lending. That can happen sometimes, and they provide capital. 2, they have a completely different skill set than you,
Right.
completely different. And that makes sense. Like my business partner, Zach, like his skill set and mine are so opposite that it works out great because he's great at what he's great at, and I'm great at what I'm great at. And here's another thing I've learned. He likes what he does, and I like what I do.
Right.
None of us are like from day one, like I travel a lot. It looks a lot more glamorous than it is. People think that's what my superpower is, networking,
Right.
connecting with people. And Zach doesn't, he likes that, but he doesn't want to do it as much as I do. And doesn't mean that I'm not okay in ops or like ops, but I don't want to do it the way that he does, where he likes it. You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's a great partnership. So it's either money, they have a skill set that you don't
I
have.
love that. Yeah.
Or the third would be they have an audience that you don't have.
Right.
And so, if I have a business partner and they're, for example, they've been in restoration, they know all the property managers and all the plumbers, and they're going to bring a book of business, that's worth giving equity to a partnership.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Like George Foreman Grill, like you didn't design that.
Yeah, it's interesting. My crazy story, two for me. My one pet peeve is when people say, I want to make $500,000 a year and I don't want to work a lot of hours. I say, well, what do you make now? Well, I make 200 a year. And I work 80 hours a week.
That's even more.
Right. Well, how about you work 80 hours a week for yourself and you try to make, some money doing it that way? Why does it have to be like double the income and half the time your first? And that's your way of telling yourself you're not gonna do it unless you set this crazy thing that's not reality. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I have the other side. People that are like, I have a really good job, and then I'm looking at their questionnaire, and I'm like, these people don't make a lot of money, but for them, it's a lot, and they're like, they think that they can't ever get there again, like it's gonna be so hard. Sometimes it's just fear that holds you back, and I'm like, wow, if they only knew that there was so much potential for them to leave, especially if you see that other people that do the same thing are making way more than them,
Right.
like they're underpaid for their role, and you're like, you should not be working there.
Yeah, but those people that are in those roles, like one of the things I'll tell you, like the more, verticals that I get a chance to be in rooms with people further than me or very successful. I haven't met one yet. I don't mean this arrogantly, but I haven't met one yet that's brilliant. They took the risk. They went for it. I think you'd be surprised that people that I haven't met them, but I think at the top too, the more you meet them, you realize, wait a minute, this person just acted fast, took a risk, believed in themselves, betted on themselves. They got lucky a little bit.
Yeah.
They worked hard. I was just listening to, and obviously this is a crazy example, but like, have you ever listened to Steve Schwartzman's book, founder of Blackstone?
No.
It's a great book. He started Blackstone, obviously huge company, and obviously he's smart. He went to Ivy League school. But you listen to the book, and he pretty much says, like, I'm a regular guy. I'm not even really that good at math. He's the largest private equity firm. And the more you listen to him, what he has is he has charisma. Because he's sharp, but he's warm. And I think his skill is just he recruited great people.
Right.
And so when I see these franchise owners like the Flynn Group, they own 2,000 locations, the largest franchisee in the world. I guarantee if you sat down with the whatever his name, Flynn, I'm not saying he's not brilliant, but I think you'd be surprised that most of that brilliance came from the experiences that they have. Raw intent.
Absolutely. They're master delegators. They have the right people in the right positions. Absolutely.
But they learned that through the time.
Yes. Correct.
Through the experience. They didn't, you know what I mean? Like they didn't become that. They became that by doing it.
Oh.
So
You just remind me of a story. Do you ever hear this Lord Timothy Dexter?
Mm.
This guy was illiterate and he became the wealthiest guy. Hold on. In the late 1700s, the wealthy elite of Newburyport, Massachusetts had a problem. His name was Timothy Dexter and he simply wouldn't fail. Like all the rich socialites were really jealous of him. I don't know if you want to hear the whole story, but they tried to trick him into investing in things. They tricked him into investing in.
Couldn't read the contract, right?
He saw them investing in local currency, and it was at the time it was continental currency, paper money that was rapidly becoming worthless. He decided this must be what rich people did. But when the wealthy were cautiously buying small amounts, Dexter went all in with the enthusiasm of a Labrador chasing a squirrel. Buying worthless money is good, he reasoned. Then buying lots of worthless money is better. And then everyone was like laughing at him. So he was everyone was like the fool, right? He couldn't read.
Right.
He married someone rich. She died. So he ended up being loaded, right? And then Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, enacted his debt assumption plan. And then all that money became worth stuff. It was like now it was worth a lot. And he became the richest guy. But like back to back, they would come up with like ridiculous things like whale bones. All of a sudden, corsets became in style.
Yeah.
And he had all the whale
Right.
bones. And then they convinced him to collect stray cats. Because he was so dumb, they would trick him into doing this stuff. So now he had a house with stray cats, like 1,000 of them, right? And then all of a sudden he heard there was like a rat infestations on all the ships coming into the port in Massachusetts. So now he sold all of these cats. He made tons of money. Like everything they tried to trick him into doing.
Worked out.
Resourcefulness.
He was just like the lucky. They couldn't like make this guy ended up having like this huge mansion. He had a statue of himself like 15 feet tall and all these other statues. He couldn't read. He wrote a book actually towards the end of his life, which was nonsense. And he was illiterate. It had no punctuation. So everyone made fun of him. Then he rewrote
Best-selling book.
It was a best-selling book. People used to have parties and read it. Then everyone was making fun of him. So then he wrote a second edition with punctuation, but it was all the punctuation was at the end, and it was like 3 pages of explanation points, periods, commas.
If I had a curiosity,
Meanwhile, he knew what he was doing because that got the attention.
Right.
He knew how to put the periods.
In the back of the book, and he was like, "Here, so you can just use them as you wish."
My favorite,
That's funny.
not as funny as that story, but just as we wrap up, like one of my favorite, it's Henry Ford. You ever heard this? You ever heard Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah.
Henry
Big fan.
Ford, basically, the news company called him ignorant. So he considered this slander that they called him ignorant. So he sued the newspaper. And so when he was in court, the newspaper company's lawyer was like, basically went up on stage or whatever, just proposed him and said, who's the second president? You didn't know, what's the, all these different facts that Henry Ford knew none of them. And so they were making their proving their point that he was, he was ignorant. And then at one point he stopped him. He said, "Excuse me, at any given moment, I can press a button at my desk and have the smartest people at my
Right.
disposal come in and answer any of these ridiculous questions. None of them relate to building the horseless motor car. And so if it doesn't pertain to that, I don't waste my time learning about it. I only obsess over
Right.
building this life-changing technology. And immediately people realize how he's brilliant. He just didn't waste his time on things that didn't move his mission.
Right.
And I think that the point is like the franchise owners, like, it's like, you don't have to be this brilliant, and maybe you are smart, but like, you just go after it. I hate to make it simple, but making money in business, usually, especially as a home service business, it's just going out there and making it happen and connecting and being the mayor of the town. Most of the other things don't matter. They really don't. As long as you, of course, give a good service and
Right.
you hire great people, good people overcomplicate the business.
To
You're-
follow the follow the system.
Follow
I
the
mean,
system.
like 1 in 6 franchise owners are coming out of the military. Why? Because they follow the system. They're
Yeah.
told exactly what to do. There's different positions, and they execute. Simple as that. They don't start thinking, I bought a McDonald's, so I'm going to start adding and changing the menu. No, you execute on the system. Yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, you're dealing with staff leaving and all that other stuff, but execute on the system, and that's it. Focus on that instead of thinking about how you're going to change the
Yeah.
menu.
Oh my God.
Or-
Did you see the 2025 economic financial report for franchising, the IFA one? You're in a good spot in home services. It's
Yeah.
gonna blow up this year. They're
Oh, yeah.
predicting. Home
Especially,
services is the place to be. And they're
Yeah.
saying food's going to come back.
yeah, food will
uh,
come back. Home services, restoration, absolutely. You know,
Personal services. Yeah, personal service on top of that list,
Yeah.
too.
But one other thing on that is like, how about this? In the game, like if we played a sport, right, and we sat here in the huddle, and you said, Dan, you're going to go left. You're the coach. You said, Dan, you're going to go left. Natalie, you're going to go right, and then you're going to both cross, right? In the middle of the game, I don't say, nah, I'm going to go the other way, right? I do the play that I was told to do.
Right.
And then in the locker room or over a beer after the game, I might say, hey, what if next time we tried the other way?
Right.
But in other words, if as a franchise owner, bring your ideas all you want, but during the day, during the game, stick to the plan
Right.
until you've, mastered that. And that's the other thing, like learn the rules before you break the rules.
Right.
I would say as a franchise owner, do everything the exact way the franchise owner it tells you to do it. And then once you're a top producer, then you could start to change things. But
It's simple. Follow the process, and that's it. That's really it. I think
Yeah.
we overcomplicate. People in general can tend to overcomplicate. So I like that.
thanks for watching.
Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.